So years ago, my wife and I were in a bookstore. I was in the sports section because I had this idea that I was going to train for a triathlon. I have a bit of a kinetic bent. I like to run, I like to cycle, even like to swim a bit. So it made sense. I'd seen photos of people doing triathlons. I'd looked at a few websites. I was pretty intrigued by the off-road versions. Maybe I'd do some form of triathlon that involved mountain biking. Didn't know, but I knew I needed information on how to do it. So there I was in the bookstore looking for books on triathlons. Found a couple books that looked insightful enough, so I bought them, took them home, read enough of them to get the idea, and never ran a triathlon. Never. Could still happen. I'm not dead yet. But here's what happened. Kids happened, and work happened, and life happened. Those are my excuses anyway. They're weak, I know it, but the triathlon, it didn't happen. I did have a book about it though, a couple of them actually. I now have information. I know all about triathlons. It's good information, but I didn't ever get the experience of actually doing one. Here's a distinction that I want you to hear. Information is one thing. Experience is something altogether different. I have information about triathlons. I don't have experience with triathlons. A few years after that, I was in the bookstore again, and again, I was in the sports section. This time, it was sailing I was interested in. We live not far from a lake. I wanted out on that lake, and I figured sailing might be a way I could do it. So I need a little information. I picked up this fantastic book on sailing, this beautiful full-color book filled with photos of people leaning back over the railing and sailing their boat through these waves and crashing through these waves. And I wanted to be in one of those photos. I wanted to sail. So I bought that book and I took it home and I read it. Not long after that, I actually joined this co-op deal, a club of sorts, where you pay dues on a monthly basis and you have access to this 22-foot Catalina sailboat. And now you can regularly find me out on the lake, hanging over the rail, crashing through the waves, at least pretending like I know what I'm doing. So first I had information, and that information was helpful, but then I had experience. And I can tell you with absolute certainty, sailing a boat is far better than reading about sailing a boat. There's no comparison. Now, I'm convinced that your experience with Freebird, it's going to resemble either my triathlon experience or my sailing experience, and I'm hoping for sailing. Information is interesting, but experience is profound. I can give you information about flying. I can tell you a bit about aeronautical engineering. It's interesting. That information, though, is nothing compared to sealing the hatch on the plane, pushing the throttle forward, pulling back on the stick, and letting that plane carry you up and into the clouds. I can give you information about my favorite restaurant. I can tell you where it is, describe the menu to you, tell you about my favorite dish. My wife and I visited New Orleans a few months back, and we hit a restaurant there that serves some of the most amazing food I've ever tasted. I can tell you all about it, but that information is nothing compared to sitting at the table in that restaurant and enjoying a meal. Information is helpful. Experience is profound. Throughout Freebird, and if you've participated in a discussion group, you've gained information. It's my hope that it's been interesting, maybe insightful, maybe even inspiring. But make no mistake about it. It is only information. That's all. That's it. I can talk all day about the benefits of putting God at the center of your triangle. There's a profound difference, though, between information about God and experiencing God. Information about God is helpful. You need at least some information. If I stepped onto that sailboat with no information, I'd have been lost. But information about God is ultimately just a philosophical exercise if that information doesn't translate into some sort of experience of God. When I was finishing the final chapters of Freebird, I had this cold sweat break out over me when I envisioned people finishing the final chapter, closing the book, and doing nothing with it. They'd gain information, but I know how these things work. We get inspired for the triathlon. It'll be good for us. We should really do that training program. We'll get healthier. We'll have some fun. But then something happens, right? Life happens and work happens and relationships happen, good things, maybe even great things. But that information we gained, it gets choked out by life, and we never move from information to experience. It's for this reason that Freebird ends with a dare. It's a dare to take the 21-day challenge. The very challenge Ned dares Tyler with, the very challenge I dare you with at the end of the book, the very challenge I give you today. It's simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. For 21 days, you commit to live by faith, hope, and love, and put God at the center of your triangle. Now that might sound ridiculous to you. You still have questions, let's say. You still may have doubts. You're still not sure about this. To which I would say, good. You will always have questions. You will always even have some doubts. You will always have aspects of this you won't be entirely sure of. Welcome to the adventure. But here's what I know. Scripture gives us a promise, and this 21-day challenge banks on this promise. Put simply, it's this. God says, you will seek me, and you will find me when you seek me with all your heart. God's daring us. If you seek me, He tells us, you'll find me. But you can't just sort of seek me. He says you have to seek me with all your heart. You can't sort of seek God any more than you can sort of get on that airplane and fly it, or I can sort of experience sailing. I had to step onto that boat and shove off from the dock. This 21-day challenge is a way for you to do exactly that. And I'd say this. If you do this challenge, and I mean truly do it, if you truly dive in and authentically seek God for 21 days, and if after 21 days you've got nothing to show for it, there's just this exercise in futility, then I would suggest that you get on with your life and send me an email about how misguided I am. Do something else. Pick up a book on sailing. Do that. But I'd also say this. What if something does happen? What if you really do experience some sort of connection with your Creator? It might not be every moment of every day. It probably won't be. But somewhere in that 21 days, if you're seeking God authentically, I'm convinced God will show up for you. And all this information you've gained, it will actually turn into some sort of a meaningful experience. To facilitate this, we've created a 21-day guide. When you sign on each week for 3 weeks, you'll get a brief email from us that will give you guidance for the next 7 days. The first 7 days emphasize faith. Second 7 days emphasize hope. Final 7 days emphasize love. Now, you might be asking, what if I'm well along in my faith journey? Is this challenge just for those who are new to this? Not at all. This may not be new information for you, but this 21-day challenge will be a fresh experience for you to deepen your experience of God in your daily life. So yes, I'd encourage you to dive in. You'll benefit, especially if you're doing this with friends, which actually underscores an important thought. Just like training for a triathlon or sailing across a lake is far better with friends, so is this 21-day challenge that we've created. So we've created brief videos and this discussion guide for you for this Freebird 21-day challenge. If you're doing this, I hope you'll take full advantage of those. Doing this with friends and doing this with a little guidance will make it all the more profound. Final thought. The information we send you for the 21-day challenge will be helpful. It'll give you a map of sorts, but let me say this. If I were going to send you a map to hike through the mountains, I would tell you, use the map. But this is your adventure. Don't restrict yourself to the trail we point out for you. Use it, benefit from it, but there's no formula here. Your experience of God in your life, it's not like you're just following a list of principles to live by. There is a personal being that I'm asking you to engage. It's like I'm sending you off to have dinner with a friend. I can tell you how to best engage that friend, but once you get there, that relationship will be living. So make it real. Bring your full self and let God engage you in a way that is about your personal interactions with Him. So that's it. I hope you take me up on this dare, and if you do, I hope your experience is as rich and profound as it possibly can be. Thanks, everybody.